You ever work nights? I mean the real graveyard shift. The one where the world's asleep and you're the only poor bastard awake, listening to the hum of broken lights and the sound of your own heartbeat. That's where this story starts. Back in '92, when I was 23, broke, and dumb enough to say yes to anything that paid a few bucks above minimum wage, I had just moved to a small mill town in Maine. The kind of place where the diner closed at 9, the movie theater was boarded up, and the only entertainment was the bar on Main Street. Jobs were scarce, and money was scarcer. So when Warwick, the foreman of the old textile mill, offered me a night shift cleaning job, I didn't ask questions. I should have. The mill was ancient, 3 stories above ground and God knows how many below. It smelled like mold, grease, and something faintly metallic, like old pennies left in the rain. Warwick was one of those guys you know right away is bad news. Slick black hair, nicotine-stained fingers, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He said the company needed some extra hands to clear out the basement. Pays double, he told us. But you gotta be tough, ain't for the squeamish. That should have been a warning, but like I said, I was broke. There were 6 of us. Me, a guy named Parker who chain-smoked even underground, 2 brothers who barely spoke English, and an older guy everyone just called Doc because he used to be a medic in Vietnam. We started around midnight, descending a staircase that groaned under our boots. The first basement was bad enough. Rusty pipes dripping water, rats scurrying along the walls, boxes of rotted fabric stacked like tombstones. The air was heavy, almost wet, and every sound echoed. Warwick handed out gloves and masks. "There's another level down," he said. "Hasn't been touched in decades. Get it cleaned up. Don't wander too far. And if you see any rats, well, they're part of the deal." I thought he was joking until I saw the way Doc looked at him. Dead serious. The lower basement was worse. The stairs led us into a cavern of brick and stone, the ceiling low enough that taller men had to duck. The place was alive with rats, small ones at first, darting between the shadows. But the deeper we went, the bigger they got. I swear I saw one the size of a house cat, its eyes reflecting in my flashlight like twin coins. Parker muttered, lighting another cigarette. "What the hell do they eat down here?" Doc just said, "Each other." We worked in silence, stacking junk, sweeping years of dust and debris. But every so often, we heard things. Scratches from behind the walls, squeals that didn't sound like any rat I'd ever heard. At one point, one of the brothers screamed, swatting at his leg. A rat had sunk its teeth right through his pants, leaving a bloody hole. He wanted to leave, but Warwick just sneered. "You quit, you don't get paid." So we stayed. Hours passed, my back ached and sweat soaked through my shirt despite the chill. Then Parker called out, "Hey, there's another door back here." It was half hidden behind broken shelves, a heavy steel door with no handle, just a rusted latch. Warwick's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Open it." We hesitated. Something about the air near that door felt wrong, colder, thicker, like stepping into a freezer. But Warwick barked at us until Doc pried it open with a crowbar. The smell hit us first, sweet and rotten, like meat left out in summer. Inside was a tunnel, narrower than the rest, sloping down into darkness. The walls were damp stone, glistening with slime, and from somewhere deep below came a sound. Not rats. Something slower, something heavier. "Keep moving," Warwick ordered. And like fools, we did. The tunnel opened into a chamber the size of a church basement. The floor was littered with bones. Animal, maybe human, I couldn't tell. The walls pulsed with movement as hundreds of rats scurried over each other, a living carpet of fur and teeth. But in the center, I still see it when I close my eyes. It was a nest, a mound of garbage and bones, and on top of it lay something pale and bloated. A rat, but not a rat. Its body was swollen, hairless, skin translucent so you could see veins pulsing underneath. Its head was too big, its mouth lined with yellow teeth the size of fingers, and it was breathing. The queen. The brothers bolted. One didn't make it. The rats swarmed him, tearing into flesh before he hit the ground. Parker screamed and dropped his cigarette, which flared briefly before being swallowed by the swarm. Doc pulled me back, shouting, "Run! Run!" But Warwick just stood there, grinning like a man who'd just won the lottery. "Beautiful," he whispered. "Been down here all this time, breeding, waiting. Do you see? We could make millions." The queen's head lifted, and it opened its mouth. The sound it made wasn't a squeal. It was closer to a baby crying. That's when I ran. I don't remember much of the escape. Just flashes, rats clinging to my boots, claws raking my arms, Doc dragging me up the stairs while Parker screamed somewhere behind us. By the time we burst into the upper basement, only 3 of us were left. Me, Doc, and one of the brothers, white as a sheet. Warwick never came out. Maybe he didn't want to. They closed the mill not long after. Official reason was structural instability. No one asked about the missing workers. No one cared. Mills had been swallowing men for 100 years. What was a few more? I left town within a week. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every shadow looked like it was crawling. Even now, decades later, I hear them sometimes. Scratches in the walls, whispers in the pipes. And sometimes I wonder if Warwick was right. Maybe that thing is still down there, birthing generations of monsters in the dark. Maybe one day they'll crawl their way up. And when they do, we won't be ready. Because we never are. You don't forget the graveyard shift. I don't care if it's a gas station, a hospital, or a factory floor. You don't forget the hours between midnight and dawn, when your body begs for sleep, but your mind is awake enough to notice every creak, every shadow, every whisper that isn't supposed to be there. I worked a lot of lousy jobs in my 20s. Dishwasher, janitor, even a summer at the county landfill. But the one that stuck with me, the one I still dream about when I hear the buzz of fluorescent lights, was the 3 months I spent working nights at the Sunoco on Route 9. If I live to be 100, I'll never forget the last customer I served there, the one that wasn't supposed to exist. I was 21 when I started. Dropped out of college, no savings, couldn't stand living with my folks anymore. I'd burned bridges in my hometown and drifted into this nowhere town in Maine, small enough that the diner closed at 9, the cops knew everyone by name, and the most exciting thing on a Friday night was when the bowling alley's neon sign flickered back to life. The Sunoco sat on the edge of town, where the highway curved into pine trees and truck stops. The kind of place that was busy by day but dead by midnight. Carl, the manager, was a wiry guy in his 40s who wore his cap low and smelled like old Marlboros. He hired me on the spot, said the last kid didn't show up half the time. Night shift, he told me. Midnight to 6. You just keep the coffee fresh, mop once or twice, and don't fall asleep. Easy money. Easy money. That's how they always get you. The first few weeks weren't bad. The lot was usually empty, except for the occasional trucker pulling in for gas or coffee, or a couple of drunks stumbling over from Murphy's bar down the road. I got to know a few regulars. Tommy, a delivery driver who always bought the same pack of beef jerky, and Linda, a nurse who'd grab black coffee on her way to the hospital. The station itself was old, built sometime in the 60s. The floor tiles were cracked and yellowed, the refrigerators hummed like angry bees, and the overhead lights buzzed just loud enough to drive you crazy. The place always smelled like a mix of diesel, burnt coffee, and mop water. At first, the loneliness didn't bother me. I even liked it. Sitting behind the counter, sipping coffee, watching the snow or rain streak across the glass doors. But after a while, I noticed things. Like how the security cameras would glitch sometimes, showing a shadow where no one stood, or how the bell above the door would jingle in the dead of night, even when the doors stayed shut. I told Carl once. He just shrugged. Old building, drafts mess with the wiring, don't spook yourself. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one sitting there at 3 a.m., staring at grainy monitors and listening to silence thick enough to choke on. It was late January when it happened. A Tuesday night, cold enough to freeze spit midair, snow drifting sideways under the streetlights. I'd just finished mopping when I saw headlights sweep across the lot. A black car rolled up to pump number 6. Big old, maybe a Lincoln, maybe a Cadillac. Hard to tell with snow frosting the hood and windows. The kind of car you don't see much anymore, not unless it's rusting in someone's yard. The driver didn't get out right away. Just sat there, engine idling. Exhaust puffed into the air, white against the dark. Finally, the door creaked open. A man stepped out, tall, pale, dressed in a black suit that looked 30 years out of date. His movements were stiff, like his joints didn't bend quite right. His face was long and sharp, nose narrow, chin pointed, skin so pale it looked like paper. Something about him made my stomach tighten. He didn't look at me, didn't look at the pump either. He just stood there in the snow, head tilted toward the road, as if waiting for something. I pressed the intercom. My voice cracked. "Pump 6, you can start fueling." No response. Slowly, painfully slowly, he turned his head, not toward me but toward the security camera above him, and he smiled, not a normal smile, too wide, stretching across his face like it hurt. The monitors flickered, a burst of static. When the picture came back, the man was gone. The car was still there, engine humming, but the pump stood empty. The bell above the door jingled. I snapped my head up. He was inside. I never saw the door open, never heard it swing. He was just there, standing in the snack aisle, snow dripping from his suit onto the floor. He didn't browse, didn't touch anything, just stood there facing the shelves, hands hanging at his sides. Evening, I stammered. "Coffee's fresh if you want some." For a long moment he didn't move. Then slowly he turned. His eyes, God, his eyes weren't right. Too dark, too deep, like holes punched through paper, with nothing on the other side. He walked to the counter, each step sharp against the linoleum. He leaned in, close enough that I smelled rust on his breath. His voice was a whisper, low and dry. $6. I blinked, looked down. On the counter lay a crumpled $5 and a damp $1 bill. I hadn't seen him take them out. "For the gas?" I asked. His smile widened, stretching his face almost too far. "Yes." I rang it up, hands shaking. The register beeped. The receipt printed. And then, darkness. The power cut out. Total blackness swallowed the station. No hum of lights. No buzz of fridges. No sound at all. I fumbled under the counter, heart hammering, until I found the flashlight. Clicked it on. The beam cut through dust and shadows. The man was gone. So was the money. But the puddles of melted snow by his shoes were still there, and they led nowhere. When the power came back a minute later, the car at pump 6 was gone. I checked the cameras. Static. Every feed showed nothing but snow. Next morning, Carl came in. I told him everything. He frowned, rubbed his jaw. "That's impossible," he said finally. "Pump 6 has been shut off since last year. Broken. No one fuels there." I quit that night. That should have been the end. Just a weird night shift story I could chalk up to too much coffee and not enough sleep. But it wasn't. Because sometimes driving down Route 9 at night, I still see headlights in my mirror. An old black car, keeping pace no matter how fast I go. I've tried pulling over, tried letting it pass, but when I stop, the headlights vanish. And I know one of these nights I'll stop at a light, look over and see him again. Smiling, waiting. Because the graveyard shift doesn't end when you clock out. It follows you. Always. Most folks think they do. Think the halls go quiet after visiting hours, the lights dim, the nurses all tuck into break rooms with styrofoam cups of coffee. But they don't. They can't. The heart monitors keep beeping, the air vents keep sighing, the floors keep needing to be cleaned, because sickness doesn't clock out and neither does death. I know that better than anyone. I spent 2 years working the graveyard shift as a janitor at St. Luke's Medical Center, back when I was 26, broke, and still trying to climb out of the pit I dug in my early 20s. That place left me with more than just sore knees and bleach burns on my hands. It left me with a memory I can't scrub away, no matter how many years pass. The memory of room 19. The memory of the last patient. I didn't set out to be a janitor. Nobody does. I tried college, didn't stick, tried factory work, got laid off, tried construction, threw out my back after 3 months. A buddy of mine said the hospital was hiring night custodians. Benefits weren't great, pay was worse, but it was steady work and inside, which mattered in Maine winters. Carl, my supervisor, different Carl than the one I knew at the gas station years later, was a burly guy with thinning hair and a permanent sweat stain under each arm. He handed me a cart stacked with mop heads, disinfectant, a rag bucket, and said, "Keep the floors clean, don't bother the nurses, and if you see something that looks like it's dying, call a doctor." Then he laughed like he'd said the funniest thing in the world. It was lonely work. The halls at night stretched on like tunnels, pale green walls under buzzing fluorescent lights, empty gurneys parked in corners like they were waiting for someone. The whole place smelled like antiseptic and stale air. My sneakers squeaked on the tiles. Sometimes the nurses on rotation would nod at me, say hi. Mostly I was invisible. Just another set of hands keeping the place running. Most nights I started in the main wing. mop the hallways, dump the trash, restock paper towels in the bathrooms. Then I'd move to the older wing, the part they didn't use much anymore except for storage and overflow patients when the ER got slammed. That wing always gave me the creeps. The paint peeled, the lights flickered, and the air was colder, like the heat never reached there. And there was room 19. Carl told me on my first week, don't waste time in there. Wing's been shut down, that room especially. Mold in the walls or some such. Just make sure the hallway's clean and move on. I nodded, didn't think much of it, until the first night I passed by and heard someone coughing inside. It was a wet, ragged sound, deep in the chest. I froze, mop in hand. Checked the door. The little window in the upper panel was dark. I knocked gently. Hello? Someone in there? The coughing stopped. Silence pressed against the door like a held breath. I figured maybe I'd imagined it. Long nights play tricks on you, so I kept moving. But the next night, I heard it again. Coughing, then a faint voice, hoarse and thin. Help. I went straight to the nurse's station, asked if someone was in 19. The nurse, a tired-looking woman named Denise, frowned at me. That room's empty, she said. Been empty for years. Why? I shook my head. Nothing. Just thought I heard something. She gave me a look like she didn't believe me, but didn't press. Weeks passed. Every night I dreaded walking past 19, and every night, without fail, I heard something. Sometimes coughing, sometimes whispers too soft to make out. Once, clear as day, a voice rasped, "Water, please." I told Carl. He laughed. "Old pipes, building creaks, don't go ghost hunting, kid. Just clean the damn floors." So I tried to ignore it. Head down, mop moving, don't look at the door. But it gnawed at me. You don't just hear someone asking for water and shrug it off. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed open the door. The smell hit me first. Not mold, though there was that too, but something stale and sour, like sheets that hadn't been washed in months. The room was dim, only the glow of the hallway spilling in. The blinds were drawn. Dust coated the floor, thick enough my footsteps left trails. And the bed wasn't empty. Someone lay there, half propped against yellowed pillows. Thin as sticks, skin pale and sagging, eyes sunken. An old man, hospital gown hanging off his bony frame. He turned his head slowly toward me, lips cracked, and whispered, "You heard me." My throat closed. "Sir, are you supposed to be here?" He gave a dry chuckle that rattled in his chest. "Supposed to be? I've been here a long time. They forget sometimes. But not you. You hear me." I stepped back toward the door. My instincts screamed to run, but something about his voice rooted me there. "Please," he croaked. "Water." My hands shook as I went to the sink. The faucet sputtered, coughed brown water, then cleared. I filled a paper cup and handed it to him. He drank slow, trembling, then sighed. "Better," he whispered. "Thank you." I backed out of the room, heart hammering, and shut the door. When I told Denise later, she swore no patients were assigned there. She even pulled up the records. Room 19 had been decommissioned 10 years earlier, but I knew what I'd seen. I tried not to go back. But every night, when I passed 19, I felt eyes on me. Sometimes the door creaked open just a crack, like an invitation. And sometimes I saw him through the window, sitting up in bed, staring out, waiting. I stopped sleeping. I started dreading work. Finally, one night, I decided I had to prove it. To myself, to the nurses, to anyone. I brought my phone. It was 3:12 a.m. when I pushed open the door again. The air was freezing, my breath clouding. The old man was there, just as before, his chest rising and falling shallowly. "Who are you?" I asked, voice shaking. He smiled, teeth gray and broken. "The last patient." "Last of what?" "Last they forgot. Last they left behind. They all leave, but I remain." I held up my phone, hit record. "Say something, so they'll believe me." His eyes gleamed. "They won't. No one ever does. That's why I need you." "Need me for what?" He reached out with a skeletal hand, fingers curling, to remember, to stay. I stumbled back. My phone slipped from my grip, clattering to the floor. The door slammed shut behind me. The lights flickered. The air grew thick, heavy. And then he was out of the bed. Standing. Too tall now, bones stretching, skin hanging loose like a suit 3 sizes too big. His mouth opened wide, wider, impossibly wide, and the sound that came out wasn't a cough this time. It was a scream, not human, not animal, a scream that rattled my bones and made the walls tremble. I yanked the door open and fled. When I came back with Denise and 2 orderlies, the room was empty. No bed. No dust. Just bare tiles and peeling paint. My phone was gone. I quit the next morning. Carl said I was weak, couldn't hack it. Maybe he was right, but I know what I saw. It's been 15 years. I never went back to St. Luke's, moved 3 towns over, got a steady job at a hardware store, started a family. But sometimes in the dead of night, when the house is quiet, I hear it again, a cough, ragged, wet. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I see room 19. Door cracked open, waiting. For me, for all of us. Because the last patient doesn't leave. The last patient waits. Always.